did anybody encounter any issues while setting up the platform? Can you guys hear me? Did anybody encounter any issues while setting up the Azure portal? Right, probably the subscription. All right, so since nobody's answering, I believe that we have set up the platform, and we'll be doing starting from today. I believe we'll be doing more of the practical aspects, right? And I'll be showing you some of the things, and you'll also be doing it on your own environment, right? So that we can always repeat it and get familiar with it. So one thing I want us to know, one thing I want us to know is that there are different ways to deploy in in Azure, right? You can use the UI, which is what you're saying now, right? Or you can use the command line, right? AZCLI. You can also use PowerShell. Everybody know PowerShell now, right? So it's on your computer, and you can also install Azure CLI, which you can use to deploy. But because of the nature of our class, um, it's a 1 hour class. We would only focus on the UI, right? So probably thinking towards the ending of the what's it called, the bootcamp, then we can go through the other mode of deployment, AZCLI. You can also learn that on your own spare time, right? But the major thing is, if you don't understand the UI, you might not be able to understand how the CLI works, right? The parameter, right, that you need to add, the values that you need to put, right? So that's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. We'll be doing more of the UI, right? Then at the end of the bootcamp, we would try to see how we can incorporate the Azure CLI and PowerShell, of course, right? So, like I said, so just to repeat, the reason why we're doing this is because of the fact that we have a constraint of time, right? And we have a lot of things to cover, right? I remember telling you last week that we'll get to a point where we'll have to be doing two times a week, which is going to be the Saturday and the Sunday, right? Just so that we can cover up a lot of topics and bring everybody up to speed. All right, so thank you very much. Welcome to week 2 of this bootcamp. So this week we'll be talking more about the resources for infrastructure as a service and platform as a service, right? The infrastructure as a service, an example of an infrastructure as a service is the VNet, and also the what's it called, virtual machine. And an example of a platform as a service is the app service. Then we have Kubernetes, right? So I will explain some other part of it later while we are doing the practical aspects. Right. So the reason why I'm going this slow, or the reason why I'm doing this is because of some of us um that are new to Azure, right? That are new to the engineering space where we talk about VMs, we talk about virtual machines and stuff like that, right? Remember, I've spoken about virtual machines before. Now, so this week we'll be talking about deployment of virtual machines, app services, right, and virtual machine, app service, VNet, and in the syllabus for this week, I was supposed to talk about AKS, right? But I might not, right? So I don't bombard you with too much information, right? So that's why I want to take it um, step by step. Reason why I'm not supposed to talk, I will not talk about it. I might do an introduction to container, right? But I won't go deep into containers. I will just give you an overview so I don't bombard you with too much information, right? So probably, I've said towards the ending of the bootcamp, we will have some topics that we might have missed, right? So if anybody can just be putting that down somewhere so that we'll be able to break that up later. It might escape my mind, right? But if I remember, I'm going to definitely speak on them. All right, thank you very much. So this week, there are some standard resources that for every environment you need to have, right? Now, for you to have a virtual machine, you need to have a network, right? In on-prem, for you to be able to set up a VM, also a virtual machine. If I say virtual machine, it's the same thing as VM or a server. You need to have a network, right? You need to have a network in place. For you to work in a VMware, you need to have a network configured already, right? Where you map your IP. You can spin up a server in VMware, yeah, and nobody will be able to access it because it's not connected to any network, right? So the first thing you want to do is create a virtual machine. And can you all see my screen, right? This is Azure Portal. This is how it looks like. Excuse me.
Yes.
And we have a search bar here. We have this ellipse here. You see some of the things that you might need often, right? Some of the things that you might need often, and you have other resources here. Most of the resources that you use, recent resources, right? So the first thing you need to do, you need to have a network, right? Forget about all these that you're seeing here. It's because I've opened them. Um, like you can see the last view, right? So first thing you need to have is a virtual network, right? And you need to come here. You can search for it here, or you can come here and click on virtual network. I have a couple of virtual, like two, right? Then, or let's start from scratch. For a start, you need to create a resource group. Remember the hierarchy that I showed you last week? We have a management group, then we have a resource subscription, we have resource group, then we have the resources, right? Management group and subscription, those needs to be created even before you start working at all, right? So I'm not touching on that. Um, come, please. You can ask a question.
Okay, good evening, sir. So, just for the benefits of those, because we see that you have a lot of things on your recent, and you asked us to create an Azure account, and so
Mm-hmm.
is it possible that maybe somebody shares their screen and then so that we can see how it is for beginners, because we just have a lot of things there, and
Yeah,
I
of
don't know.
course. So that's fine. I will do what I want to do, right?
Okay, sir.
The remaining minutes, we might spend an extra 15 minutes there. So I would just ask somebody to share their screen and so that we can see what you're working on. Or everything that I've taught you today, right? You can just demo it so everybody can see. And if you make mistake,
Okay.
everybody makes mistakes most times. So we can always correct ourselves. Does that
All right,
make
no problem.
sense?
Thank you.
Right.
Yes, I does. Thank you.
So yeah, so last week, I showed you about the management group, the subscription, the resource group, and the resources, right? So the first thing you need to create is the resource group because you need to organize your resources, right? So the resource group, I'm choosing if you have multiple subscription, you would see it here. You notice that you cannot see the management group. No, you don't need to see that because you can't be choosing management group while deploying, right? So So the resource group I want to create, DevOps Bootcamp. Sorry, my keyboard is why am I stretching? Bootcamp 2024. right? So now, one of the things here is based on your company's policy. You need to be aware of what the company is working, what the company policy is. There's some company that I work for. There are some companies that I work for that um, their primary region is East US, right? While their disaster recovery is West US. Well, I work for another company where their primary resources is West Europe. But it depends on what the company. There's a company that they don't even mind as far as the resources is standing, right? But you need to have the resources, it depending on where the company is, right? So that's just it. Because we are in Nigeria and I want something closer, I'll pick West Europe, right? And click on tags. Tags are very, very important, right? Before, let's say, departments, probably you want to do it by department and say that what you probably anything you're creating inside this resource group belongs to the engineering team. Yeah, engineering team. Or let's say no, engineering team is relative data team, right? And what type of resources you want to say both resource type. You can say platform as a service, or then so you understand why. Okay, yes. All right, so that's it. Then you click on review. So it's going to do a validation. If you have a lot of things that you're creating at the time, it's going to do a validation before saying create. Then you click on create. So tags are mostly good where for subscription when you want to what's it called finance people, right? When they want to say, oh, even for administrators, Azure administrators, because you need to be able to know what department is consuming resources or what type of resources are consuming a lot of money, right? So those things needs to be tagged. So I know a company. I don't want to mention the name of the company. They don't even send you as far as the resources is created. They just create it, right? They don't care. And I know another company that tag is compulsory, right? They even did it to the extent that they created a policy that even if you miss tag, right, there will be an automatic tag that will be applied on that resources that you create, right? So that's for you to know how important tag is. So now we've created the resources, I mean, the resource group rather. And the next thing we need to create is the virtual machine, virtual network. So you click on virtual network, then you click create. It brings up the resource, what's it called? The the same thing, the subscription and the resource group, right? And you click on what subscription are you looking for? I mean, what resource group are you looking for? Which is DevOps, BootCamp. Oh, I didn't put camp. Ever. All right, so you can say VNet. You can add VNet, right? You can also add Dev. If you have multiple environment, you'll be having. If you'll be having the dev environment, this pilot environment, and the production environment. So you can only specify it, right? So you see that by default, you saw West Europe here because you've already mapped West Europe to the resource group, which is this, right? So it's going to pick that region by default. You understand? Then you don't just go to view and create immediately. You go to the next. Do you want, are we adding VNet encryption? If yes, mark it. If no, you don't want, right? There are some things that are optional. by Azure Bastion, is it that your resources are internal? Any resource, all the resources you want to create, they are internal, they are not network facing, where I can just log in from my system from anywhere. You get that what I'm trying to say? So you might need Azure Bastion to be able to access it from Azure Portal, right? You can enable that too. Do you have the Azure Firewall? Yes or no? No, I don't have. But in your company, they might have. You might want to put it behind the firewall. DDoS, this your security guys might enforce you to do this, right? Because of what this is not a I don't have any security team. I don't have any. You understand what I'm trying to say? That will be enforcing me. Oh, I need to enable DDoS, right? I need to enable this. I need to enable that. The firewall, the everything, right? But I don't need to do that right now. But based on your company, you would need it, right? So you go for next. Now, so this is the only for VNet, you are creating a whole network, right? And between that network, you have different subnets. We call them subnets, right? Probably you want to say, oh, this subnet, I want to create it for platform as a service, which is for app service. This subnet is for what's it called? Is for virtual machines or is for um, VNet, or this subnet is the one that helps with storage account. You want to integrate storage account or for your Kubernetes cluster, right? You need to specify that too. So by default, it gave me this, which I don't mind. So about 65,000 IPs, right? And a default subnet, right? And I want to say, I don't want it to be a default subnet. I want the name to be web app, right? Then I click on save. I can say add another because we are creating two things. And I say add another one. I don't want default. I want virtual machine. VM. It's too much. It's vague. Anyways, just leave it at virtual machine. Then I'm doing so one thing is prior to now, you need to do your IP calculation yourself, right? But now Azure is now making everything easy. They'll help you to do probably because of the integration of Copilot or something, right? They are now able to, but prior to now, you do your calculation. You go you search IP calculation, IP calculator, right? I use that a lot, right? Then you do a lot of calculation here. But now it's very easy. Just come here. It's going to create something for you. Just click on add, right? See what it gave you. Free of charge. This time, 2 years ago, last year, you can't be doing all this. You will do the calculations yourself. So it makes things easy. Or another thing, please. There's a company that they want some set of IPs, so they need to create based on that set of IPs. You understand? So the infrastructure team will tell you, or the architect will tell you, oh, this is a set of IPs that we want in our environment, and they'll give it to you. And you have to create it based on that. Although that means he will have done the calculation himself, not you, right? So, but if you are the infrastructure person and the company is just no, you can use this since it's Azure, and we will integrate it with our on-prem environment, right? Then we can just go ahead with whatever Azure is giving us. Cam, do you have any question? I saw your hand raised up.
Yes. So my question is, you said something about creating two addresses. That is, we have the web app and the virtual machine. So
Mm.
at what point do we know, okay, we are creating our virtual network. At what point do we know if we are to create two networks or three or four or just one?
So you can even create one. You can just leave that default. Then anytime you need a subnet, you can always come back to that VNet and create. I just want to create this so that I don't want to come back, right? You get what I'm trying to say? You
Yes, I
can
do. I do.
always come back. You can always come back and just come and create your subnet.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. So you see that web app is giving 256 addresses, right? And virtual machine is giving. So within that space, it can assign up to 256 addresses. But one, let me tell you something, because the way as I'm teaching, I always be telling you my experience too, right? And so that we don't, the mistake that I made, you don't make it, right? So I was contracting for a company, and unfortunately, no, thank God I was not there then, right? They had created the virtual network, right? When they created the virtual network, they only they only gave the Kubernetes cluster 256 IPs, right? 256 IPs. So I mean the subnet for the cluster, they only gave it 256 IPs. And it's a production environment. When they elapsed the IPs, they were not able to. All right, so they were not able to deploy again. So that kind of cases, in that kind of case, there are some cases in that kind of case, you cannot add extra. So if you know that the web app or what you want to use that subnet for needs more IP, you better increase it while deploying, right? So let me do another one. So this is going to give us 62. Let's say cluster, cube set, right? Cube sub. Right. So it's saying that it's going to give us 52 IPs. And I said, no, I don't want. I want what's it? I want yes. You see? I want I'm telling you, this is much easier. Before I know what I was saying. That's what I'm saying. This is now very easy. So I want 4,000 IPs to be applied to the subnet for cluster. Because then when we encountered that thing, I think 3 or 4 years ago, we had to bring all the infrastructure down, then said build another one, right? Because of what they did then. So you now do like, okay, 4,000 IPs. So I don't know what you want to deploy that your deployment want to use up to 4,000. Right? I currently work for a company that the IP is applied for their CubeSet or their cube for the cluster is about 8,000, right? 8,000 out beside the ones that they've used already. You understand what I'm saying? So you need to know what the number of IP you need for what that subnet that you're trying to create, right? So I think we spend more time on here. All right, remember the tags. Remember to add all the tags, please. Then the last one is review and create. It's going to run validations. Right? Probably you've made a mistake. There are some resources you can't use caps to create them. Right? You need to use lowercase. So it's going to run validation for them. Right? There are some ones that probably the name has been used before. It's going to run validation to say, oh, we can't use this name. You understand? So that's just how it. So deploy it. While we are waiting for the deployment, does anybody have any question?
Okay,
Remember,
so
this just
my
uh,
question
right.
would have been the question I wanted to ask is on under the security where you have the bastion, the
Mm-hmm,
firewall, and
mm-hmm.
the so I'm asking because some of these things are actually like I don't even know what is bastion. So
Okay, so okay,
I'm
yeah, I
just
think I explained it. Probably you were not on the call, or something you didn't. So, but for that bashing, right, is when your resources are internal, right? When your resources are internal, that means it is not publicly accessible. Do you understand? So you can't just come to your system and say, "Oh, I want to access one resources that is on the cloud." It will not go, right? So it is that bastion that you will use Then you come here, click on Bastion, then you now say, I want to access one resources. It's going to open another tab for you. So it's just going to open another tab for you to show you the system you want to access, like a web URL, right? Not like normal RDP that you want to, like you use from your system. No, it's just going to access this from the portal directly. Do you understand what I'm? It's going to create a UI for you, just for you to be able to access those internal resources. Do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I do.
Uh-huh. So that's just the other ones are just firewall, firewall now. So and the other one, I think the other one is DDoS. Yes, you might need to enable DDoS, right? Everybody. I don't think I need to explain what DDoS is. All right, please, Shay.
All right, so I was going to ask that. So what you're trying to say is not compulsory that we toggle the encryption and the other option. It's not
No, I
compulsory.
never said it's not compulsory. No, no. I made the statement that your company will either tell you we need this or we don't.
I mean, it's okay. Okay.
So if I enable all these things, I don't need it. Who is going to be paying for it? That was on a lighter one anyway. But
Okay.
you're working for a company, they would definitely want
Have the finances to do that.
to do that.
Okay. I get it. Thanks.
All right, no problem. So we've created our network, right? From this network, we can be able to say, oh, we want to bring up. Please go ahead.
So from the last time conversation I had just now, are you
Mhm.
saying the more options you click, the more you are going to pay for those resources?
You
Like
will
if you
pay for
said
it too.
you're activating those DDoS security on your virtual network, you are going to pay for
Yeah,
them for using it.
you pay for them.
Wow, interesting.
You pay for them.
Okay.
All right. So then we are far behind. Let me just move as fast as I can. All right, so the next thing is coming to virtual machine. Then you want to create a virtual machine, right? Click on virtual machine, and just like before, right? You click check your subscription resource group. You need to come to BootCamp 2025. Virtual machine, right? You see that it has done validation and say it's available. Availability zone. Remember the definition of availability zone that I gave you last week, right? Do we want availability zone or we don't? Do we want virtual machine scale set or availability set? I don't want any of these. This one will just make you have VM across multiple environments, right? Multiple fault domain. You get in terms of the availability zone, right? That I was talking to you about last week. Then like this one, I just want one zone. I only want one zone, right? Um, what's the next thing? Security type. We want the standard. You might need to go through everything and say, oh, what does this one say? What kind of virtual machines do you want? But you see, trusted launch virtual protect against persistent and advanced attack. I just want a basic level security on my machine. But in a production environment, you want to choose this, right? And image. So, what kind of virtual machines do you want to create? Is it a Windows server or is it a Windows 11? Is it a Linux environment, right? So, you might need to choose this. So, me, I would go for this, right? And size. Now it comes to the money. You will click all size, so you see all the ones that. So it depends on the series that you want. There's D series, there's B series, there's DS2 series, right? There are a lot of series, and there are a lot of version of different series too. And please, one thing is always come to this side, to your right side. Check the cost before you pick. It is very crucial, right? So check the cost before you pick, and also it depends, and also it also depends on the size that they give you. So do you want what kind of CPU that you want, or what kind of RAM that you want, or the maximum IOPS that you also want? Is this something that you're going to be using consistently, that you want a max IOPS, right? Is this something that you just want to use for deployment, just regular deployment, that you might want to pick this 4 gig RAM, 16 gig RAM, and 8 gig disk, right? Yes, that's $140. This is high. Anyway, I'll delete it once I'm done, right? So, and if you want a situation whereby you want this, okay, Shay, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I was going to ask that why didn't you go for the cheapest one there that has to do with like $80 or something?
So, yeah, it's the reason why I didn't go for that is there sometimes you choose a smaller one and the system will be dragging. You understand? The server will be dragging, right?
Okay.
So that was why I didn't. But for the purpose of this training, that was why I chose that, and it must not stay till tomorrow.
All right. So
you
the
get what I
question
mean?
now is that the other question I would like to ask is, so is there like a recommended series that you would say that just for deployments, one should just
What kind of
get to
deployment?
use?
Is this a deployment that just for you or for a company-wide size, right?
I know that organizations would have policies,
Yeah,
so you
of
can follow the
course.
policies. But I'm just saying, right, for someone
Mhm.
like you're just trying to
You
try
can
your hands
choose
on different
between,
things.
yeah. So 2 gig RAM. I mean, 8 gig RAM is and 4 gig disk is fine, right? And 2 vCore. You can use one CPU, right? The system will be dragging, so you can use about 2 or 4. It's fine
Okay,
within those 2 or 4. It's
okay,
fine.
okay. All right. So that's B series.
Yeah, be serious, of course. So username and password, that will be the admin username and password. For some weird reason, I don't know what's wrong with my mouse. So the next part is the disk, right? Do you want to encrypt the disk, right? Yes or no? Your company will decide for you. What's the size of your disk? You want to know about this size, this OS size, right? Once anything you start with, you cannot reduce it, right? It will always have to go. Do you understand? That's one crazy thing about Azure. Hmm. Right, so I'm going with this. Then I'm not using premium, I'm just using standard. You can use standard for production environment, and you see that it's local redundant storage. You can always use premium, right, or SSD or HDD. It depends on what you want, and also this redundant storage too, right? Delete VM, delete with VM. Okay, so if you want to delete OS, the disks, should you delete the VM? Of course, definitely, right? Platform manage key. Okay, so this one is for key management. So there are some times that you have your company will have keys, and there are some times that you just need to use the platform key, which is Microsoft keys, right? So for you to manage your what's it called? Your VM, right? Guys, just give me a minute. Guys, can you still see my screen?
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
you can see your screen.
Okay. All right, so use the platform key. I've worked with a company that they have their own encryption key, right? They save it in a key vault and they use it to encrypt their VMs, right? So now we don't want an extra disk, so that's why this will be left blank. You can just do, if you want an extra disk, probably different from the OS disks, right? Something like this. Can you see this screen? This one will be the OS disks, and this one will be the data disks. Did you see this?
Yes, we
Oh,
can see.
am
Please, I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Key management. I see key management, and you
Yeah,
said some companies can have their own key in their vaults,
yeah,
kind of. So
yeah.
what exactly does the key management do?
You just encrypt data, right? It encrypts
Okay.
data on the keyboard, on the VMs. Do you get that? So it's just for your key encryption. All right. So what do we have here? All right. So we leave this as it is. Next networking. So by default, because we're already in bootcamp resource group, it's going to pick the VNet that we created, right? So it has picked it, and you need to change the subnet, right? You need to give it the virtual machine subnet. Now, this, so a lot of companies does not use, they don't expose their virtual machine, not at all. Right? Why some companies, they don't mind, right? They don't mind as far as you have an NSG that does not allow anybody to access it, just some specific IPs, right? So since I don't have any point-to-site VPN to my environment, I'll just leave it as public, so we'll be able to access it. And network security group. This network security group is how where you create your security in terms of who can access it, what can go out, and what can come in. You understand? So I'll do a basic. I'll also do like I'll also add some security so that some of us could be able to connect to it. So definitely, this is a server that you need to RDP in, right? Remote into. So you need to open the port 3389. And if you peradventure you deploy something on it and you need to access it, you need 80 and 4432, right? So while SSH is 20 for Linux environment, I don't think you want to be SSH. You want to use SSH for your Windows box. I don't think you want to do that, right? Delete public IP and NIC when VM is deleted. Yes, I want that, right? I don't have any load balancer currently, right? So I just leave it as it is. Then the next one is management. So Microsoft Defender, this comes with a free plan. Um, so if you want to log in with Active Directory, there are some of you that okay, so hold on. Active Directory, this is the Active Directory. We'll still talk about Active Directory too. Right? So there are some of you that already have access to my Active Directory, right? User. So if I enable, so here, yeah, these are the names. I can see me here, right? So if I enable that, if I enable this, right, that means that you can use your email and your password that you are using to access this portal. You can use it to log into what's it called, to the virtual machine. However, it's not supported based on the emails that I chose, right? So now this is the auto shutdown. Maybe you want to shut it down at so period, right? So this will configure that backup. So you need to create a backup. That means you need a recovery vault, right? Most companies will have created that, right? So that's also consume money. So I will not enable it. So I enable disaster recovery. Disaster recovery is that point where I was telling you we have a primary region which we are using as West Europe. Then would have a secondary region, right? So that means that once this virtual machine that we're creating is down and there's an issue in West Europe, by default, the traffic or the traffic will be redirected to what's it called, the other regions that we pick up, right? So that's that. Time I'm coming, just give me a minute. Let me just try to rush this because of the time. And what else? The guest OS? No, we don't want that. Monitoring. Do you want to enable alerts? Probably where the VM is acting up. Boot diagnostic. Yes, this one is recommended by default. It's going to create a storage account so that you'll be able to see what's going on. Right. Enable. These are all monitoring. Sometimes you don't need them. Sometimes you need them, depending on the company's advice. So this, you can install an extension, right, in your VM as it is provisioning, or probably maybe I have a PowerShell script that I need to use to install something. I can add those PowerShell scripts here, and while it is provisioning, it's going to install those things. Or say there's a PowerShell script that I have to deploy Chrome, because by default Chrome does not come with this, right? So you can just add all those scripts here to deploy. I want to install this, I want to install that. You add it here so that it will use it custom. Yes, it will use it to provision it, right? And this, we don't need this right now. Then the next one is tags, which you can also always add. All right. So while we are validating this, then creating, Ty will go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you, Ola. Just very quickly, I just want to know, why do we need, or what's the main difference between the backup and disaster recovery? So I'm thinking, if I'm activating disaster recovery, why do I need the backup? I'm just saying, maybe you
Yeah,
can
of
just help my
course.
understanding.
It does not make sense to, if you activate disaster recovery, right? What do you need the backup for? But there are some times the backup, you can just need the backup so that you can use to set up another VM, right? If this VM crash, right, you can just take that backup and use to spin up another VM, and every of your data will be there. You don't need to now start from scratch. Do you understand? While disaster recovery is just, or when I'm currently using the server and say something is wrong with that region, you would, by default, the system just help you to redirect it to the other region, and you won't even notice any issue. Do you understand? So that's just the major difference.
I do. Thank you.
All right. All right. I didn't think we picked a lot of things, so it should deploy on time, right? Um, so we'll be seeing some of those things that it wants to deploy. All right. So the other thing we'll be talking about, right, is web app. So it's already deploying, right? Is the web app. Do you understand? So web app is a platform as a service, right? It's just an application where you deploy your application, right? But without for you to deploy a web app, you need an app service plan, right? So what the app service plan does is it hosts your web app. Do you understand? So I'm still going to show you, but I'm just trying to explain it so that we will be able to move fast. Now, so instead of having web app, some people, instead of having a app service plan and a web app, they would rather have it. Mind you, remember when we were talking about platform as a service and infrastructure as a service, you notice that for infrastructure as a service, there are some things you can control, while for platform as a service, you only control your application and your data, right? Some people, they want access to the environment. Oh, I need to allow this thing, I need to allow that, right? So they want to manage the environment. They'll go for virtual machine, while some they, I don't care, right? They'll just go for app service plan or app services. Do you understand? So, so you've created a virtual machine and you have a public IP. This guy, you understand? This is it here. You have a public IP. All right. So first thing you need to do is just search for remote RDP on your system. Click on it. So you add the IP, then click on connect. So it's going to ask for username and password, web dev, I guess. Then, all right, so you say yes. Where's my mouse? Sorry, guys. So this is the server, right? It's coming up. So you see that the server has come up here and you're able to log in into it. Do you understand? So let me drag this guy here. Uh-huh. Yes. So does that make sense? All right, so this is your server, right? So you can now start doing anything you want to do. I want to set up IIS for hosting my website. You can do that, right? You can, you understand. Now, this one security, let me just talk to you about the security. Hold on. Am I, yeah, managing, of course, yes. All right, so you can decide to stop maybe when your system is hanging, you can decide to come here and restart it, stop it. You can do connect. So you see that bastion, Cam, you're asking about bastion. You see
Yes.
connect via bastion. So it's the same way it's opening like this here, right? It's not going to open on a browser, not on your system. Do you understand? So that's just the
Yes,
difference.
I do.
All right. So the backup, and I was supposed to talk about the backup, but I was supposed to show you the backup, but and the recovery, right? But I've talked about it so you understand. Except you don't, if you don't, just let me know. So this is the disaster recovery, and I'm saying disaster recovery between availability zone. I don't want that. Disaster target region, East US. I might say, oh, I don't want East US. I want something in Europe. No, Europe. Yeah, yeah. I want something in Europe, not Europe. We're already using West, right? Then I'll go to advanced settings, try to do a lot of mapping, right? Then review and start replication. By default, that means you'll be paying for two VMs at the same time. Remember, that means you'll be paying for two VMs at the same time. So that's just the difference. Because by the time there's an issue in West Europe, so West Europe, that's our primary region. So it's going to just do a failover to North Europe. Do you understand? So everything you pick it based on the configuration that your company has set and review and start, right? While for backup, it will just take backup of your digs, right? You take a snapshot of it so that you can use it. Probably this server, you've created Docker, you've created application, you've installed your application on it, right? Everything, right? You just take a backup of it, enable backup. You now use it to create multiple. Instead of setting up this server, create another server and log in, start installing this, installing that, installing this, installing that. No, you just take backup of the ones that you have set up, use it to create multiple. Right? That's just the hack. Do you understand? Um, what else again? There's the security that I want to tell you about. Yeah, networking. So that we don't spend much time on VM. I'm coming, guys. So networking. So this is the networking. For every virtual network, for every server, you need a network interface, right? Just give me a minute, please. You need a network interface. That network interface is attached to your VM, right? And you now have a net security group. You understand? you have a security group. So this is the security group that I was telling you about. You what's it called? This is where you now permit anything you want to. This inbound route, that means anything that eats your server, right? Anything that wants to come into your server. You trying to access the server from your system is anything that wants to eat your server, right? Outbound is from your server outside, right? So now you see that I said RDP 3389 protocol TCP, and I said source anywhere. So I can come here and say this source, I don't want this source to be anywhere. I want it to be IP, right? And I say, what's my IP? What's my IP? So this is my IP, right? And I just come here and say, only from this IP do you get port. That means any port. You don't need to worry about that. Destination, RDP, port, and save it, right? So if I give you the IP of my server, none of you will be able to reach it.
Okay, sorry. What if because I know that you're using dynamic IP, DHCP. What if it changes? That means you won't be able to access, I don't know.
Which dynamic? What is that?
Because you just
Yeah,
like
of course, definitely. Of course, definitely. Right. So I won't be able to access it. Except once it changed, right? I'll have to
yes,
come here and
to
come
update
and
it.
update it here. Yeah.
Okay.
So in most cases, the company will give you a VPN, right? That VPN has a static IP. So it's that IP that you add here, not your local. Because if you restart your system or your system sleep or something just happened to your system, the IP will change. Will you have to go and be meeting your administrator that, because most companies, excuse me, most companies, you need to request for changes to be made. Right? Will you be making changes that, excuse me, that you want IP to be changed? No, you can't do that, right? So that's just how you can be able to access it. So, but if I leave it as the source to be any, most of you guys can reach it. So do you understand? Do you guys understand what I'm trying to say? Right?
Yes, yes.
So that's for VM.
Can you make it
That's
any, please, so that we can access it?
go and create your own. Okay, you want to access? Try it now. I want you to try it and see if you can
Yes,
access
I'm
it.
actually trying. So I've opened the remote
So what did
I've
you
opened
say?
the remote whatever on my remote desktop. Okay, the thing is not opening.
So
I've
let me now
opened it.
change it to
Let me
any,
see.
right? So that's just how probably, somebody comes to you and say, as an administrator, I'm not able to access this server, right? You tell them, are you using a VPN? What region is your VPN, right? Because you need to be able to show that that region is able to access the server. Then you say, this is the region. You ask them, okay, you definitely must have been given, probably you have a document where the engineering team store their IP. You just look for those IP for that particular region and come and add it inside, because most company does not leave their inbound route as any, right? We
Yeah.
don't do that. So that's just how it is. You can also set up any rule too. So let me save it.
So the username is web dev,
Web dev, yes, yeah,
lower cases.
yes. Wait. I've changed it to any.
Okay.
All right. So you should be able to access it now. So any question we try, you get Taiwo, I think I saw your hand up. Demi, I also saw your hand up too. Or your hand is still up, rather.
You have actually answered my question. It was about the region switching and all of that. So I wanted to know if it's the same thing as failover. But you
Yeah,
have
of course
actually
it
talked
is.
about it. Yeah, no worries.
All right, so I
In
want us to quickly
the,
move away from. Okay, Taiwo, you wanted to ask a question, please.
I wanted to say you've answered my question as well.
Oh, okay.
Is on the dynamic IP
All
studies.
right. Okay. All right. So
The password too is web dev.
no, the password is my password.
Okay, maybe you can change
Okay,
it so that we can.
let me let me just do. So another thing is you can call me and say operations. Where is this guy? Settings, no. Money, no, it can't be monitor. Run command, change to inventory. Hold on. Okay. Okay. You can just call me and say, um, no. Mm, so you can use this user. Let me see if it will go. So it's good. VT count. And user is all right. So try that. Let me see. All right. So the second one is app services. I'll run through that, right? So that we don't use because most I understand that everybody is busy, right? And so the next thing is app services. Taiwo, go ahead, please.
I'm sorry to interject, but I was just thinking, you just add the user now, like because I was used to the Linux environment where
Yeah,
you
that
would
one is Linux is much easier now, right? Think of
yeah. So you just added a user now, and I'm like, okay, you have and you quickly create a user and right.
yes.
Okay,
So
okay.
it's much easy like that. There's always a command line serve, right? I don't know where that command line is. Probably they've removed it where you can just say, "Oh, create user." Let me see. It's supposed to be
Okay,
here
so it
somewhere.
didn't go
Actually,
through.
I don't
Sorry.
even want that command line. I just want to know where you went to add the user. I'm not sure I got that.
Okay, I don't know why it's not here again. It's always here. It'll tell you update user or something. Okay, so I just search for user, just like your system now. Users,
Okay.
user account, then create our account. Do you understand?
Okay.
The
Thank you.
same way you do on
Because
your
on the
PC.
Linux, you will just there's a way you
Yeah, of
just
course.
run your and you just add the user straight.
That
You
one
add your
is user
password. Okay,
add,
thank you.
user add, and add the
And
username.
user
That's
add,
all.
thank you. Okay.
What else? Okay, app services. Yes, I need to rush through
Okay, so
this
I'm not
so
able
that.
to log in.
Yeah, what is it saying?
Saying your credentials did not work. The credentials that were used to connect 20.56.6520 did not work. Please enter new credential.
That's a credential error, right? Not a network error. Probably I didn't get the password very well, right? Did you put that capital letter at the C?
Yes, I just copied and pasted the password.
Check if you copy it well. Maybe there's an extra space. All right, so you can always reach out to me, but I need to delete it this night, though. Their stuff is expensive. All right, so create an app service, right? You see this guy, app service with database. People don't mostly use it. I don't know why. It comes with your natural database by itself, Staxis website. Probably you have an HTML or CSS only website, right? Then the normal web app, right? So I'm creating a web app, and the usual, this subscription, resource group, bootcamp, and let's say bootcamp. Um, oh, the user account is not authorized to. I didn't authorize that user account to do. What is it called? Manage account. Uh, change, let me change it to this. Uh, there's another place where you can authorize the people that can do remote access, right? Uh, probably you might need to. I might need to check that later. All right, so I want to use bootcamp.azurewebsite.com, right? So all this is not available. 25, right? Is available. So you see, secure unique default name. I don't need it. Just uncheck it, right? So now runtime stack, right? So are you deploying your code or you are running a kernel? Okay, makes sense. So the person was able to sign in after I made the user an admin, right? So are you deploying a code or you are running a container? So I'm not talking about, I won't be talking about container today. Let's see how would tomorrow be. If you guys are available tomorrow, that's fine. I'm also available. Right. So now, what type of application are you deploying? Right. You know, this is a platform as a service. So you're in charge of your application and you're in charge of your data, right? So what kind of application is it? A .NET application, Java application, PHP, a Python application, or a Node, right? I'm choosing Node because I'm a React person, right? And what region are we deploying to? Europe, of course, West Europe. So, okay. So at this point, I forgot this place. What operating system are we using? Is it Linux or a Windows? And I'll choose the Windows anytime, right? Linux can be troublesome sometimes, right? But and this one, so the plan, I told you if you want to create an app service, it always come with an app service plan. So is it that you want a default name, probably your company is giving you a particular name, or you want to leave it like this, right? I can just say uh, DevOps a okay, DevOps a app service plan, right? And click on OK. See that the name has changed. So let me choose the pricing, right? You're not charged based on the number of app service. So now you have app service plan. You can have multiple app service in an app service plan. You are not charged on the number of multiple app service that you have, but on the plan that you're using, right? So let me use a B3, a B2. Let me see the future. Okay, so this is the future. Some of them they don't use custom domain. Yes, this is what I'm looking for. Custom domain certificates. So if you have custom domain, it will use, so I'll use a B1 for it. So B1 costs $32 a month, right? Then I select, right? And what's the next one? Next, I'm not using any database, right? So next one is deployment. Probably you want to deploy it directly now, or you can just do enable. You have a GitHub that you want to link direct, but I don't have any, right? You can just do next. Next one is when networking. Right. So this one is very, very important, right? Do you want it to be publicly accessible or not? Right? You can say off, you don't want it to be publicly accessible, right? And you can say on, you want it to be publicly accessible. Or you want to enable virtual network integration, right? See, virtual network integration, that means you want to link it to your virtual network, right? So you say yes. You remember we've created a virtual network and this is it. And we have a subnet for it. There's the subnet. So enable VNet integration, right? You click on AK, then click, thank you, and click on the subnet, which is web app. Do you understand? Then you click on next, monitor and secure. Why is this slow? All right, so monitor and secure. So application insight, we'll talk about application insight too, but application insight just allow you to monitor your application, use Kustoke. There's something we call Kustoke, KQL, right? So use it to monitor your application. I don't want that is an extra cost. So that's why I'm not use Microsoft Defender. I don't have any subscription for Defender, so there's no point in enabling that. So the next one is tags. Please remember to always add tags and review. It does the validation and you're good, right? So then you click on create. So remember, you are not built on the number of app service that you have in an app service plan, right? You only build on the number, the size of your app service plan, right? It's very, very important, right? So now, remember that we link the app service plan in the VNet, right? And the subnet is what the web app subnet. You from there too. Remember, okay, so I'm too fast. So I go to VNet, right? I pick the VNet that I deployed. Then I came here, subnet. So we have the subnet. You remember, Cam, I told you that you can add additional subnet here too. Remember that too. So this is it.
Yes, it did.
So yeah. So you remember that this guy now, this guy, this web app, right? We can also add so look at this web app now. You see that there's a delegation on it. Microsoft Server Farm. You cannot use it for any other thing except app service plan, app services. You can't use it again. Once this delegation is here, you can't use it again. It will not work. You understand? So you can always so like now we can always add a network security group on this subnet and also dictate what goes out and what comes in, or probably you don't want it to be able to reach one particular thing or the other. Remember, so that's just what network you can create, the configure the inbound and the outbound, what's it called? Inbound and outbound rule for that NSG, right? And also remember the delegation is very important. So I need to show you something. So once the monitor is up again, so I want to show you there are delegation and there's service. Just give me a minute. Uh, there's delegation and there's service something. Just give me a minute. Let me show you. Click on the subnet. All right. So remember, you see that this energy we can apply to it too, right? Okay, yeah, service endpoint. That's what I want to. So you want your storage account to be able to your web app to be able to access storage and probably key SQL, keyboards, service bus also, you can enable all these things for them. While if you want to integrate it to a network security group, you can click on this, right? So there's a for this bootcamp, there's a part where we'll talk squarely on networking, and so that's why I'm not talking much on network security group routes now, right? So when we get there, that you will be able to reference back to this, right? And what else again? Yes, we can save that. So this must have been done, right? So this is very easy. So this is the web app now, and you click on this. You click on the default domain, you remember. So you can just paste it and do. So it's coming up. Is it my network or the app is all up? Okay, so it's going to come up. Oh, sorry. Let me remove the energy app. I think the energy is not allowing me to be able to let it go out. None. Okay. But there's a particular rule in the energy that is not allowing it to go out. For the inbound rule, right? It's not allowing it. So that's why. I've saved that. Let me see if it should be up now since I've removed them. All right. So quick one. So number one is two things I will talk about, right? No, four actually. We have environmental variable, right? This is where you can set your probably your configuration, your apps. You see this, there's a default configuration, right? Version 20. You can add your configuration here. You can you come to connection string to add your database connection strings, right? And you can come here to configuration. So um, environment as application configuration and connection string. Connections is for database, um, service bus, and the stuff like that. While application configuration has to do with configuration from your application code yourself. Why configuration is a platform configuration, right? You remember I chose Node, right? This one you can platform is you have 64 and 32 bits. You can decide to use 64 bits, right? So all these things as normal configuration that you will have on your IIS, right? HTTP version, you can decide to use 2.0, which is faster. You understand? 2.0 is faster than 1.1. Everybody use 1.1 now, but if you're, I hope it's not information overload. So if you're using a regular HTTP call, right? You are using 1.0. So there's an advanced one now, which is 2.0, right? Where you can use protocols like gRPC and WebSocket. Do you understand? So don't let me go there so that it doesn't involve too much explanation. So default document, right? So if your application root folder is maybe indexed or something and it's not here, your application will not load. Do you understand? Your application is, you know that we have a default here. We have default index, the default IS or start, any type of application that are deployed. But if you have a custom landing page, right, you need to come and put the name of the file here for you to be able to access it. So the application is up. You see where your web app is running and waiting for your content, right? So you go for path mapping. You don't need to want this one now. So we have defined error page where if you have any error, it's going to give you the error page, right? So then the general settings. I've talked about the environmental variable. I've talked about configuration. Usually, we don't really make changes here. Usually, except maybe you're troubleshooting. You now notice, oh, this is what is causing it. Let me enable this, right? We don't usually make any configuration. You only come here when probably you're troubleshooting, there's an issue, and you feel, oh, changing something here would resolve it, right? I'm not going to talk about authentication, right? Identity too, I'm not going to talk about it today. Then we have custom domain, right? The custom domain is where you can add, by default, this is what I'll be using, BootCamp 2025.azure website. So by default, I don't want to use this domain. I can't be giving people this domain, right? So I have to give them what is what I can use, a more defined domain. I'm going to give you an example anyways. So, and here you can, this is your certificate also. I'll use another web app to show you all these things so that we will be able to understand it, so it doesn't seem like I'm not demoing it, right? Then we have the scale up. Probably your B1 is not enough. You notice that there's a slowness, there's something, you notice some performance issue, right? You may need to come to B2, B3, or premium, right? So that's just it. Azure just started this, the load testing. Maybe you want to know how well your application can perform. You might want to do a load testing. So let me use my own web app. The same thing as the one that I provisioned, anyways. So the same thing that as the one I provisioned. You see that this is the environmental variable. What did I? Nothing is here, right? And no connection string, because this is just for my portfolio, right? We have configuration. This one too, their default. I didn't change anything. Remember, I said I'm not changing anything here in configuration, except maybe I start troubleshooting an issue, and I noticed that any configuration will have fixed it, right? And custom domain. You see that this, I'm not using this. I'm using my own custom domain, right? And I added my certificates to it. So I'll come here. I'm showing you those things that are very important, right? Bring your own certificates or manage certificates. You see, these are the certificates that I have, right? And I map them to this domain, right? So if I do this, if I copy this, you see this is it already. You see that this is it. And it's, excuse me, and it's secured, right? So these are the website like that. Like I said, you want to scale up, you want to scale up. Okay, let me talk about scale up and scale up. Now, scale up is you want to you want to increase the size. Probably, you remember I was using I used B series for the VM. All right, thank you. So for the VM, I use B series. When they tell you, oh, go and scale up that machine, that means from B series, they want you to go to another series, right? But when they are saying scale out, you cannot scale out virtual machine, but you can scale out app service plan. Scale out means that for this virtual app service plan, you're only running one instance. That means you're only running one virtual machine, Windows virtual machine. You see, this is it. So that means that we are spending $32 per month. If you scale out and mistakenly add 2 years, you'll be spending 32 plus 32. That's almost 64. Remember, so it's very important. So that can also help you to solve performance issue too, right? So then the load testing, monitoring, that the other ones we'll still talk about that. I'm just trying to watch our time, right? So any questions, please? Can you guys hear me though?
Yes, you can hear you. No question from my
All right.
side. I just want to say
Yeah.
I was able to log into the remote desktop
Okay.
this thing. Remote
All right.
desktop, yes, I've been able to log in.
Okay. That's nice. So any question with regards to app service plan, app service, or the VM itself? Those are the two things that we spoke about today.
Yeah, so for me, I was going to ask about the certificates. Was it that you
Mhm.
purchased the certificate? I said I was going to ask about certificate. Was it that you
Mhm.
purchased the certificate or you just install it, or
So
you put it or something?
so you always purchase certificates now, right? So for I'm always talking in terms of company. Company would buy a wildcard certificate. That means the real domain is my last name.com, right? So let me go to the domain DNS. All right, so this is the domain, right? And you see the record now. So so anytime I had a subdomain here, you see that this Olaitan is a subdomain, right? So anytime I add any subdomain here, once you buy a wildcard certificate, it will always work with it. Remember, it will always work with it. That's why most companies buy wildcard certificate. You understand? So when you buy the wildcard certificate for, let's say, falolu.com, that means any subdomain that you add, right, it will work for it by default. So any other questions,
All
please?
right. No, that's fine for me. Thank you.
All right. So I want to believe that we understand everything, and if you have questions, you can always drop it on the group chat, and I will always be able to respond as much as I can, right? So in the absence of no other, okay, Shay, please go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to confirm if you'll be uploading this
Of
to the
course,
YouTube channel.
there's yeah, of
All right,
course,
thanks.
do that. All right, thank you very, very much. See you